Okay, so today is December the 12th, 2021, and this is our Western Desiderata meeting. And well, we were already previously talking about certain topics, so whoever wants to start it off.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to discuss a bit of the financial system as what the general script is for good citizens and why that is not good for the citizens that it's purported to be. So the general idea is pretty applicable across various countries. I'll be looking at this through the American tax system, but there's state pensions and socials and things like that in many countries, and it's largely cookie cutter between them. At least the where the people are joining from on these calls most of the time. So I think uh, the general idea is originally there were pensions, which were defined um, uh, defined defined benefit plans, I believe. So they were, you know, you'd have an unlimited amount of years that you could be alive, and it wouldn't run out, essentially, and you could be taken care of. So it was like a bit of security blanket, so that if you were working for a company, you could have that for the long term. And then around 1971 or something, I believe Kodak um, came out with uh, you know co-sponsored a bill to do what's called a 401k, which is essentially a retirement plan that um, is designed to essentially make the company um, less responsible for you, uh, and to make you responsible for what you invest in. So the the challenge there is that it's often taken from you and given to the government will then control it. So you can't access the funds that are pooled in your retirement account without a big penalty. And the entire idea behind it is essentially that you want to put money tax free, tax defer money now for so that while you're in your working years, that you'll be able to withdraw it at a lower tax rate when you retire. And that premise itself is based on the idea that you're planning to be poor when you are old. Like that, there isn't an idea of that you would build your skills and assets and stuff so that you'd be getting more and more money and you'd be in a higher tax bracket later. Now, historically in the U.S., these are some of the lowest tax rates that have existed. And so to think that you're going to get a lower tax rate in however many years is crazy. But also the 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 if you were to invest the money that you have now, you pay the taxes on it and invest it in currently, you would have um, the the capital gains rates, which are typically lower than income rates. But in retirement, they will force you to take your money out. It's called a required minimum distribution, and that will be taxed at regular income rates, which are typically much higher. So they will be. It's actually a trick that you will often end up paying more taxes in long term, thinking that you're not paying taxes now, and the government already restricts what you can do with that money. So where you basically have left control to what you can do with it. The terms of the agreement and stuff can be changed at any time by the government. So they could do a bail in like Cyprus did and just take your money. Um, so uh, or they could change the rules and make it so that you have to invest it in government bonds or something like that. But the real trick is that over the course of your life, so you get a job and you put money into your 401k up to some maximum. Uh, there's like often a 401k match. So if your employer will put some money in for you, it's like, oh, that's free money. Why would you not want that? And the truth is that the companies that have this 401k match, typically there's uh, they're just taking that out of your salary essentially. So they would normally be paying you more, but then they have this conditional money that you have to put it into this, and then they just pay you less, right? So that's it looks like free money, but it was your money to begin with, essentially, that they're making now conditional on you doing things. So some of those 401k match rules are often evaporate. Like you have to stay with the company for 6 years, and it has to vest, and these kinds of things. I mean, it's not true for every company, um, but there are a good chunk of 401k match monies that just evaporate and go back to the company. And so the other thing is that it's a um, there are limited amounts of funds that you can invest in. So you can't invest in, say, um, you know, assets that you can control. So that being real estate or some other things that you can force appreciation on, right? You can't go and like install a carport or something like that and make more money. What you can't you have to invest in things like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds that are provided by your employer, and those typically are uh, kickback scheme type of things with large fees. So the mutual funds will be maybe have a 1% fee or something like that over the course of your working career. Now that sounds like nothing, but over the course of your working career, that'll steal 2/3 of your money that you've invested. So what ends up happening is uh, I mean, he's done videos on rates before and how the banksters use those to fool people um, into thinking that the theft is a boiling frog thing that people don't notice, right? And but this is even worse than that, because it's anything that you put into your 401k is not your money anymore, right? And it's also, you can't control it, you can't use it at any time, you can't um and you and the more you put into it, the less control over your life you have to be able to break out of a rat race situation. So you have essentially to stay in the employment, wage slavery business, because you never accumulate more than subsistence for your life. As long as you're putting it away into the 401k, that's not available to pool your money and compound outside of the 401k system. So that 1% fee um, goes into stocks and stuff like that. So the mutual funds will take that out. So that'll take already 2/3 of your money. But then there's this, this religion around the financial industry about compound interest and have how that's like, they'll say that Einstein said that it was the strongest force of the universe. Einstein never said that, and it was just a bullshit thing that they had for marketing, that they said Einstein said that. So don't believe that. Um, and also um, they'll say that the S&P 500 has returned an average of like 7 or 8% over the lifetime of investing in it. Now that's also a scam, because the when they report that 7 or 8%, they're reporting average returns, and average returns are not the kind of money you get from your investment. So, as an example, if you were to in, speculate with, say, $100, and you buy $100 of, uh, something Bezos did, and then it goes down 50%, and then goes back up 50%, even though the average returns would be zero, you only have $75 of your original 100 by the end, because you cut that 100 into by half, and then it went up by half again. That's 70, goes up to 75. So it will actually shrink your money over time much faster than the headline rates. They never give you the real returns. They only report the average returns. And the average returns can be crazy low, because it basically penalizes any volatility in the market. So it'll just be chewing away at your money over that time. And if you're not paying attention to it carefully, it's very hard for you to understand, because you'll think, hey, look, I've got this big nest egg, and maybe I've made $1 million investing over the course of my life, and that's great. But what you wouldn't know is how many other houses and Lamborghinis you would have if you hadn't done that, right? It's that so they'll fool you. And the thing is, with that, the the S&P 500 also kicks out the um, companies that were underperforming. So this is another thing, like if you look at uh, the Motley Fool stocks or something, they'll have like picks of stocks for you that beat the market. And what they do is they just kick out the ones that didn't perform and call it the same index, and pretend that you would have, if you had invested with them, that's the return you would have gotten. And truth is, you don't get that return. Almost everything that you read about is um, is predatory against you. So you try to educate yourself, and you get caught in these little honeypot traps of what's the right thing to do. Oh, you should get a safe, stable job with good benefits, and max out your 401k, and and all of those things are bad for you essentially. So when at over the course of your life, if 2/3 of your retirement funds have been taken from you and they're inaccessible to you, um, uh, then at the end you get forced to pay more taxes on it than you would have if you had just paid taxes on it from the get-go, or removed yourself from the tax net, um, by renouncing your citizenship or what have you. That there's you have uh, essentially just spent your entire working life, like, essentially paying into Wall Street and making Wall Street and the banks and the government, that dark triad, benefit off of your back, off of your labor. So, and a lot of people don't think about tax optimization and these kind of things because it's not it's boring and it requires a lot of research. But over the course of your life, you are that's your single largest expense. So if you're paying 35% of your stuff on that one expense, and you never consider about how you can lower that or work with it, it's it's absolutely negligent in a way, because that's like working 3 or 4 months of your year purely as a slave for the government, like you with no benefit to yourself. And that's a uh, I mean, it would be one thing if the government was doing a good job and not, you know, uh, doing all the things that it does. But yeah, if you can make a judgment call whether you want to support that hierarchy or not. Um, but essentially, it's it's also like the script of getting a safe, stable job with good benefits is a lie as well. Because if you were to have a business with only one customer, you would say that's an extremely risky business. That's unsafe. But that's exactly what employment is. You have one customer, and they can vanish at any time, right? And so the only thing to be safe and stable is to get multiple streams of income, get multiple employers, get multiple customers, have a business. And the other thing about a business is that there are no ways to optimize your taxes as an employee, um, yeah, other than these retirement programs and maybe having a kid or something. But it's all negligible. Whereas with a business, you get taxed post. You get to dec- figure out your taxes um, after spending them. So if you invest in things, then you say, okay, I had this much profit, and then you get taxed on that. Whereas if you're an employee, you get taxed immediately before you get your money, right? It gets taken out of your paycheck, right? So those are those are vastly different systems that allow you to essentially control your life better. So I think the uh, the the tricky thing essentially is, if you follow the script of the system, you will spend your entire working life, um, maybe eke out like a meager retirement, especially if you get student loan debt and things like that, where you're enslaved to pay that back over the course of your lifetime. Like my mom will die with her student loan debt. She'll never be unindentured, and it's just an enormous amount of. I mean, it's an American problem more than it is a European one, but it's a uh, essentially you will run out of uh, you will never get ahead in your life if you follow what the system tells you to do. You have to break the system's script if you are going to escape from it.
Okay, so this is a big thing. This is a wow, big thing. And I think we should all put it under the heading of, the extinctionati and how you actually navigate the collapse of the financial system. Because it's the very first thing you have to tackle. So if you are a deep doomer and you know that the system's it's undergoing collapse as we speak, you have to work like a ninja to get through, just to the point where you get through the collapse or the flippening, right? So before you even talk about how you survive the flipping. You have to probably survive the collapse, and a large part of it is finance. So we should address this, even though people might get a little bit bored with the subject. But we as the Extinctionati, if we're actually going to survive the future, our best bet, I think, is to do it as a collective, and to muddle through it together. So it's the same kind of thing that you need all the way down the line, and that's mutualism. And so, yeah, I have a lot of ideas about Jash and support all of us. The problem is most people have their own incomes now, and they're not really kind of focused on, the kind of coming collapse and stuff. So let's get focused on it and start from the point of view of start from scratch, like where you're coming from about investments and stuff. So, okay, first of all, banner headline, this is the same as medical advice, is that basically we are not financial experts, and we're not qualified or licensed to give you financial advice. So any advice that we give you is just our own thoughts, and it's just buyer beware, and past performance may not indicate future prospects, and all the other stuff. You're at your own risk if you listen to any of our advice, because we're not giving you professional financial advice.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not giving you professional advice. Yeah.
you bloody you're gonna need some fucking. You're gonna have. There's so many things to survive the coming years and survive the flippening. There's so many things you have to ace. It's worse than the Egyptian gods trying to make it through the sticks to the underworld. But anyway, this is part of the value of the death that you have to get through. This is my thoughts. So a simple thing, just to level set for everybody. What a 401k is it was a loophole in the law. That's why I call a 401k. It was a special section of the law, and some accountant noticed and realized, hey, that gives you a loophole to actually put money tax-free in the stock market. He made a big fuss about it, and then everybody got on board because the company suddenly realized they didn't have to accumulate pension funds. They could just do matching contributions to a 401k, and then you go on the stock market. What they were doing is basically transferring the risk onto the employee. So the 401k, you have an IRA or a 401k in the UK. An IRA is a self-managed 401k. 401k is managed by a third party. It's the same in Australia and I think New Zealand. You have a super fund. And so that is really, you don't have access to the money. You have a professional investor. They steal money from fees, some of them vast amounts, but most people try and get an index-linked fund with a 1% fee. And as Ryan says, you get reamed because they trust that nobody can do maths and compounding. So, okay, so what is going on here is pretty much what Ryan said. In Australia, it's not so much in the UK and Europe, because they still have the concept of a pension, and they like pensions because, like Robert Maxwell, you can use the penny. Governments hate pensions, and the reason is because economists and governments hate pensions because any savings are counted against the productivity of the country. So all politicians are therefore, activists take note. Excel, are you listening? All politicians are therefore is to protect GDP growth. That's it. They're not there for civil rights. They're not there for justice. They're not there for anything else. It's just to protect GDP growth. Why do you need GDP growth? Because the people that own the country, the financiers, need a regular return on income. So they have to have GDP growth. That's why we will never, ever transition to anything other than this economy. That's why we will never have degrowth. And it's basically this: the country has to grow. It's an imperative. It's built into the system. It doesn't matter if you're communist, China, they're under this regime. So so effectively, we go through this. There's no transition to a green economy. Green growth is a myth. And so get this through your thick skull, is that's all politicians can do, and you have to now negotiate it. So how do you pull this off? Well, it's going to be fucking difficult, right? It's going to be amazingly difficult. And let's start with the first thing. By the way, just a simple thing is, the one thing you should do, American, I'm not sure about Australia now, but if you're American, you should max out your HSA. So that's a health account. So the health savings account is a loophole, and it's the reason why a health saving is ripping you off is because big pharma or the healthcare industry, they got a concession to allow people to, the healthcare industry gets all the money in an HSA. HSA is the health savings account. I mean, it means you can just defer money that you can then use for health. And so everybody knows you need that money at some stage. And so you put it in an HSA. They have a look for similar stuff in Australia and stuff like that. But an HSA will use that money, and you will use it tax-free, because you will definitely need medical, some medical procedure coming up. So HSA good. 4K, like Ryan says, is con game. Now, and the con game is to stop savings, because the savings in are frozen capital. If everybody saved, the GDP would go to zero. So they and also the balance of payments, kind of like whatever you save, the government is a debtor to you, and the whole game is who's the debtor. And we're all debtors, but workers are debtors. We're debt slaves, right? Marx said wage slaves, but he didn't really understand them. Now it's very obvious we're debt slaves. So it was always about debt, like David Graeber, debt the last 5,000 years. So, okay, so now how do you negotiate this? Well, here's the problem. Oh, just one more thing on the thing what Ryan was saying is, in case you think, well, sounds good and goes for putting down roads and exploring space and doing science and giving Peter Daszak money to do bioweapons research and shit like that. It doesn't. It's an absolute drop in the bucket. Only three things that your tax dollar goes for. It goes for the military, right? This huge white elephant that's belching CO2 and cannot stop. Basically, it goes for Medicare and the VA, all the basically socialized medicine, and then that goes through to the healthcare industry, and that's kind of double what the rest of the world pays. So Americans being ripped off. And then the other thing is repayment on the national debt. What's repayment on the national debt is the central bankers on Jekyll Island in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, the federal bank, the financiers took over the government. That's what they effectively did. And then they went around the world. And the last was the Bank of Japan, but they got the Bank of Japan too. And everywhere they decoupled the central banks from the politicians, telling the world that they're saying, well, you can't let the politicians, have the purse strings, because otherwise they just spend their way into popularity to get elected. So if you're going to have stable prices and lack of monetary inflation, then you need central bankers. That was what they said. What they really meant was, we only give you money at like 6%. So the way the monetary system works is the federal bank and the central bank in your country will all be the same. The Bank of England gives money to the Treasury, and then the charge 6% interest. The federal bank is not federal. It's not a bank. The federal bank is not, and it doesn't have any reserves. All it's there is a vehicle to shield who the real owners are. The real owners are secret, but they're not really secret. Everybody knows who they are. They're the big five banks. And the big five banks are owned by now, they're owned by all the hedge funds. So it's basically, yes, I'm sorry, it's conspiracy, and it's conspiracy to keep you running on the treadmill. So they struggle to make you sure you can't save. The same way as people in Auschwitz, there's people in a gulag from accumulating food. because if you accumulate enough food, you can do an escape. So they got very careful that you can't do an escape. It's all geared away to stop slaves hoarding, and so that's why you can't save. That's why interest rates are zero, borrowing rates are huge, and credit card debt is monstrous. And so that's the way they make sure that they keep you working, right? That's okay. So now, given this background, is what's about to happen? Well, there's a labor shortage, right? When there's a labor shortage, this is very dangerous for the central banks and the government. What's happening is they need to stimulate the economy because of the lockdowns and the slowdown to GDP. So they've been doing quantitative easing. That's printing money at an extraordinary rate. It's never been attempted in history, anything like this. It always ends up in the same place. You can go and look at the South Sea bubble. You can go and look at the French assignat. It's the Zimbabwe dollar. It's just a way of printing their debt into the ground. So they print their obligations into the ground. It's the very first thing that Darius did, and Darius was probably the first guy that started this game, invented a currency. So what they are doing now is inflation starting to take off. Inflation is going to cost Biden his job, and it's going to see Trump in the White House in 2024. They're absolutely boxed in. There's nothing they can do but stimulate the economy through the banks. They give the banks money, hoping that the banks will then lend it on. That's what trickle down is. It's not trickle down from the rich to the poor. It's trickle down from creditors to borrowers. And the banks are not really interested in the average Joe Sap because he's not a good risk and he's not returning much. Everything that's returning bubble. So this is where it gets very, very dangerous because there's an everything bubble now. Now, it's going to translate into high wages. You can see that unionizing in Amazon and all of this kind of stuff. When wages go up, that translates to inflation. So they're doubly fucked. Great resignation has made people withdraw their labor, and increasingly people are disaffected. So there's going to be unrest, and there's going to be strikes, and there's going to be problems, labor problems. You can go back to the 70s and quickly see what we're in for. And this is all over the world, by the way. So when when workers demand more wages, everybody all over the world, there's a labor shortage because people are just pissed off. And this whole thing, pandemic's taken its toll. So when the labor gets shirty, they demand more wages. They can't give them more wages because that translates to inflation. But at the same time, people are raising prices unilaterally because there's supply side shortages, right? So the government's completely boxed in. They're seeing, particularly higher prices at the pump and oil and things like that, energy prices. That's translating all the way through into consumer prices. The consumer price index going up, and then so the workers are going to demand more and more in terms of wages. If they give them that extra money, it fuels prices and not so much earnings. There's a lag in the system. So okay, in the meantime, I'm just painting the picture of what you have to survive that's coming down the pipe, like really, really soon. So now, what it appears, the average Joe doesn't get any of this. The reason is there's a big divide in who you are and what you're on. This is the first problem for the Extinctionati, is everybody thinks they are in a different circumstance. And the system encourages you to think you're in a different circumstance, but we're not. We're all debt slaves together. So, okay, so let me explain why. If you're an older generation, then you look at this and you see this huge inflating real estate bubble all over the world, and you say, I'm getting richer, I'm getting a wealth effect, I'll be able to retire sooner. And it's like, no. What you're seeing is the value of your currency decline. So imagine Zimbabwe, and now Mugabe is bankrupt, like all governments are. Then currently, then Mugabe just starts printing money. He just, it says like, roll the printing presses, and the Zimbabwe dollar's going through the floor. Now, if you own property in Salisbury or Bulawayo or whatever, then you're saying, I'm getting richer and richer. Look at this. And you're saying the same thing about your 401k. Now, the boomers don't give a shit. They think they're laughing. They're looking at property here in Greece, and they're buying boats because they're assuming that they're getting richer and richer because the stock market keeps on going up and the property market keeps on going up. But it's not. It's the currency going down. The purchasing power of the dollar is going down, and they can't see it because they're not earners. The guys that can see it are the youth, and then they see that it's getting harder and harder to earn a buck. It's getting shitter and shitter, and the will to do it is getting less and less, getting eroded. People are saying like, I'm sick of this game. And also coincidentally, people are starting to understand the financial system. The youth is gradually starting to realize, A, there are conspiracies, and two, that basically the financial system is the mother of them all. And so they starting slowly, the young people are starting to get that it's all a big con game. And so the whole game is falling apart. So where does this end up? Well, history is replete with examples of exactly where this ends up. It ends up in violent revolution, and soon, right? So okay, now how do you negotiate this with as the Extinctionati? I'll tell you this right now, it ain't gonna be fucking easy. So let's discuss a few strategies. A good one, okay, so I would suggest that we try and stick together and help each other out. And if you make money, especially if you make money out of the advice I give you, then I expect you to return it, not to me, but to everybody in the Extinctionati. And so basically it's just basically it's mutual support. So now how it works is like, imagine this. It's better to have a diversified strategy. It's better that you don't agree with me. It's better that nobody agrees with me and they think they have other ideas. But the very first idea you need to get rid of, I think, in my view, is what Brian was saying. You can't be a good citizen now and get through this, because the stock market's gonna burst. It's a monstrous bubble, right? And it's gonna crash. You might not see it crashing, but as it goes up, it's effectively crashing because it's hollow. It's actually it's only about 10 stocks on the Dow and all the thing that they're reporting, as as Ryan was saying, these indexes like the Motley Fool index going up, is that it's only a very few companies, and they rotate them. So it's like switching bets on a horse race, depending on who's in front. It's a complete scam. If you look at the majority's, real majority, apart from about 10 super stocks, all the what do they call them? The fast things, the Facebook, Apple, whatever shit.
Fang.
Those Fang, yeah, Fang. And so apart from the Fang stocks and stuff, they just it's a Ponzi scheme. They're just getting more and more, but everything's hanging on the Fang stock. But the real meat and potatoes thing is really got it kicked in the nuts. And so you'll see things like, I wouldn't think guys like Elon Musk are going to make it through this, because he's trying to do real bricks and mortar kind of old style enterprise, which is actually produces shit and does all real old fashioned stuff, like produces profits. There's no profit in actually making shit anymore. There's only profit in making, having paper, because paper generates paper. Riches make people richer. So Elon Musk and those guys, they can only make money to the extent that they're circulating paper. So they get government subsidies and they recirculate them and stuff, and they're making money. But nobody's making, mousetraps and getting rich on them. And certainly in an inflation environment, that ain't going to happen. So it's all these people that are making money, particularly on derivatives, and like I've told you before, there's $30 by my last count. There's $30 in the derivatives market. That's side bets on $1 in the real market, which is the actual horse that they're betting on. So this cannot go on. This cannot go on. It's basically eating itself out from the inside, and all the signs are there already. So what do? Do you go out and buy Bitcoin? No. Bitcoin is an NSA sting operation. It was only ever designed to see who was trading on the dark web with you. That's all it was for. It's since then all the other blockchain and stuff, currencies and stuff, they're all Ponzi, right? So they all exactly the same scheme as the bankers are doing. They just latecomers on the very same game that the guys pulled on Jekyll Island, right? So here's the problem. You're going to need nerves of steel to negotiate this and not be suckered at the final post. You see, because I'll tell you something like Bitcoin is a load of crap and it's going to get shut down, and a Bitcoin enthusiast will tell you Hugh's full of crap, and look, I've made a couple million last month. How much did Hugh make? Ha ha, he's an idiot. Okay, so the way this game works is like a mine the size of Newton's got burnt in the South Sea bubble. So the South Sea bubble was the bubble of the time and Ponzi scheme. And Newton told everybody that it's a bubble, it's a Ponzi scheme, and told them how it worked. And they all kind of listened to him because he was Isaac Newton. And then Isaac Newton lost his shirt on the South Sea bubble. And you say, how did that happen? And he said he lost his nerve. He got sick of telling people, they're being really stupid and this can't go on and it's all going to burst. And they just eventually started selling, Isaac, you're a fucking idiot. I'm richer than you are. How much money did you make? And eventually it got to him so badly that right at the top of the market, he went and invested heavily, and immediately it popped and was proven right and lost his shit. So the problem with this thing is you have to have, it's worse than not getting the jab and telling everybody like, oh no, I know better than the world. It's like you get the stupidest fuck your enemies are going to ridicule you and say that you're an idiot because they've made money like crazy on tulip bubbles, on tulips or whatever. And this is where I go and have a look at the tulip bubble. There's a very good book on this, right? Mackey's the Wisdom of Crowds, not the wisdom, the madness of, about the tulip bubble. And you'll see psychologically it's just the devil. It's absolutely the devil, because you need the fortitude of Job to stare this in the and watch dipshit friends of yours at school and stuff come and tell you that they made out like a bandit and they're going to buy a yacht and stuff, and you just have to look at them and say, you poor ass, you're doomed and you don't know it. But yeah, all I'm saying is I would never be able to convince you with my words now of the wisdom of this. So what to do about it? I would say diversify and just do a little bit. If you get absolutist about it and you listen to Hugh and you say like, Hugh, you bloody bastard, this stupid idiot friend of mine who's a complete village idiot is now richer than Bill Gates because he got Bitcoin, and I didn't get Bitcoin. He told me not to. So this is what I'd say is get some flipping Bitcoin. just do a little bit of any one of these things, right? And I'd say do it collectively. So if you think Hugh's absolutely wrong and Bitcoin's fantastic and Satoshi's Jesus, and yeah, okay, then go and get it. If you make out like a billionaire, then spread it amongst the Extinctionati, and then do it. With everybody, do a different strategy. So okay, so I would tell you don't buy Bitcoin. Go ahead if maybe it's a smart. Just do a little bit, just to from psychologically you can stop yourself. beating yourself up because you're missing out on an opportunity. But okay, so what I would say is gold and silver, a big gold bug. Now, but again, you have to be very, very careful, because what a blockchain enthusiast will tell you is you're going to get burnt with gold and silver, because they're gonna seize it. So if Mike Mooney, all these guys, they're absolutely right. It's real money. Gold and silver is real money. Even more so silver, because it has utility, and they need it in all the EVs and stuff. But here's the thing: they are going to seize it. So they already are seizing gold in effect by just doing price controls. So they manipulate the price of the gold just outrageously. It is no riffing on price discovery or availability of bullion in the market. It's just crap. And the Basel III thing says they have to change the accounting rules, so the banks will know, the bullion banks, who are the guys who manipulated all of this, can no longer effectively manipulate the gold with certificates and stuff after December. So yeah, I would get into that gold and bullion. So now, is bullion going to take off? Maybe, maybe not. You see, the government cannot have bullion taken off. Bullion competes with their scam. In other words, they're giving you fake money, and all the children accept it because they're dipshits. But you see, if you have real money, as soon as anybody sees through the game or the game falls apart, you're a serious threat to the mafia. So it's kind of like, you are the rich guy on the block, and you have real money, and they are the scam artists. The scam artists are going to come after you when everybody sees through their scam. And they're the ones that have all the guns. Do you remember that 1/3 of the revenue they collect is for the military? Now you know why. It all comes down to a barrel of a gun. So the value of the dollar is intricately based on the firepower of the US military. So that's one of the reasons why you can never go green, because they can never white into a solar panel and wind farm friendly green utopia death machine. So they have to run on fuel. So it's strategic. That's why you'll never keep the oil in the ground. It represents more than energy. It represents power, and it represents the financial system. And why? Because it all goes into a fighter jet, in effect. So, and fuels an aircraft carrier. So basically, so here's a tip for you right away. You can get into security things. So you can get, if you lost the stock market, you want to ride these bubbles. So if you ride these bubbles, you ride them real careful. It means you have to be really, really into it. You can't dabble and check your stocks once a month. I wouldn't recommend that. It's effectively you electing to catch a knife, as they say on Wall Street. Catch a falling knife. But if you do it, the way to gamble, you're gambling, right? Understand that you're gambling. It's going to be Las Vegas. Now, if you want to do that, the way to do it is you can get in and out of the property market without fees and without deposits and without interest and stuff. You just go to REITs, real estate investment trusts. So REITs are ways you can get into the stock market by actually just buying stocks in various companies that do commercial real estate or do residentials or something like that. But they're essentially, a collective of homeowners. In effect, they're basically doing what individuals do with their house. They're just doing as an institution. So it's very cool, because you could sell a REIT tomorrow, you could short a REIT. So you want to make an absolute fucking fortune, you get the turn on the REITs. So it means that you ride the property bubble up, and you get it on the minute, and then you short like crazy. You keep a big balance in a trading account. You have a margin trading account. Then as soon as the REITs drop, don't get this wrong, because if you go short on REITs, they will eat you up. And they will start paying dividends to punish you for being short, right? But anyway, if you can ride REITs down, oh my God, some of the great fortunes have been made on that trade. So anyway,
I
and
think that's
especially if you can write a flash graph.
yeah, I think that's a good point. A lot of people get confused around investing versus speculation, gambling, essentially. And there's a big difference. If you're investing in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, REITs, that's not investing. That's speculation. That's gambling. And if you and I think another thing is you need to know what the purpose of your asset allocation is. So for gold, I would see that more as like an insurance policy, where you're not really using that as like a way to generate income, as much as insurance on financial collapse, or like just a hedge against inflation or something.
It's insurance against theft, of government theft. So the
Yeah.
government is stealing through rent inflation, and so they if you get gold bullion and you stick it under the bed, don't put it in a safety box with a bank, because when the shit hits the fan and you really need gold, the banks are going to be closed, right? So you literally have to put it under the bed. But it's you see, it's a protection against them stealing. So the government are thieves; they're just crooks, and they're just the mafia. So here's the problem: is that eventually they have all the guns, so they can come around to your house and collect the gold physically when the game's off. Everybody understands the game. They can do the bail-ins. All of it is just clever tricks while the sheep are asleep. But if the sheep ever catch up, or they run out of sheep to slaughter, they will come eventually. The mask will come off. They'll come and knock on your door to get bullion. So and why? I mean, I'm not literally. I'm being figurative here. They don't literally knock on your door to take your bullion. They take it by just saying you'll have the death penalty if you found with an ounce of gold on you, and they fix the price of gold at $35. They did it already, so they will do it again. They did in 1933. So they will come for your gold and silver. So here's the thing. I hope I'm painting the picture of what you have to do, and why I say you have to be a ninja, because you have to jump logs. You can't pick a strategy to get through the coming financial collapse. You have to time it like a ninja. Now, if you timed it right, man, you could become a very rich bastard. But most people will time it wrong. That's why I say, as the Extinctionati, you must think more in terms of an investment pool. And then, okay, if you have enough people, and we grow the Extinctionati enough, you will have enough people that some come through. So the way it works is a few people will make out like extraordinary, like bandits. It's gambling, literally. So, okay, let's put context of gambling, because this is a very good thing. So you're in Vegas, let's call it roulette. So in Vegas, the house wins because basically double zeros, or they've done payout, they have a payout ratio and stuff, and so the house always wins, right? So in this case, it's not quite like gambling, because the house is going to lose, right? The house is about to burn down, right? So it's like we all say, as the Extinctionati, have chips on the table, say on the roulette table, and somebody's going to come out. There's going to be 1 in 36, or hopefully not double zeros. And you see, one of us is going to make out like a bandit. The smart thing is to share it with all the rest, so that we indemnify ourselves. That's the one thing the government can't fuck you up on, is mutuality. So one of the ways to survive all of this is a mutual club. So the best thing of all is to have a parallel economy. And that's why I made Geodo and the money thing, which I can never get off the ground. But if you have a parallel economy, and it can have loose affinities with permaculturalists and Bitcoin enthusiasts and stuff like that. But you see, if one thing that the government cannot fuck with is if a mutual system amongst ourselves. So if I owe you, 100 euros, that's an obligation that the government can't fuck with. And in fact, it's a currency. I could trade it amongst the rest of us, right? And then that's very strong. There's nothing, you see, there's nothing, the government can't come around with a gun and say, like, you know how you got an agreement with Sophie that, like, you owe 100 euros and you have an interest rate of 10%. Well, I say at the barrel of a gun, that's illegal. And you say, okay. You laugh and carry on. There's nothing they can do about it. So all the other things they can do stuff about. But if you have an informal arrangement like that, it's the reason why they don't like the mafia, and they don't like the Cray twins, and they don't like, it's competition for them. And the way it's serious for them is because it's informal and parallel. In Greece, they use the drachma in this kind of closed community. So it's to have a closed community. The ideal thing would be to have everything you need within that community. So you'd have medical services, you'd have permaculture, you would have, like, transport, and all of these things, all the stuff we need to survive. If it's in your closed community, you can laugh through the collapse, right?
Yeah.
So deep adaptation, while they, stringing their violins and weeping and doing all this emotional shit, they should be talking about stuff like this. And so I think we should. It's a good thing to open this conversation, and we should start thinking this way.
Yeah. I think the other
stuff to say here.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the other side of other than the speculation and gambling. So there's the investment. So if you want to understand what investment is, just think about what will a bank loan you money for. So if a bank will not loan you money to play on the stock market, right? They won't do that. They'll laugh you out of, like, you're getting a loan to go to Vegas, right? They'll just laugh you out of the office. But if you have a business plan for a business that you want to buy, you see there's a laundromat or something, and you want to buy it. You say, okay, here are the cash flows, here are the assets, the liabilities, and all these things. You bring that to the bank, and they give you money. Now, this is actually where the money supply enters the market. Really, is from the bank to you. They just wish it into existence.
Actually, they won't.
Say that?
They won't.
They won't loan you money?
They don't give money. No, if you want to go and buy a franchise or something, they won't give you the money. Those a long ago have become bad bets. That's what they kind of teach you in school, is that's how they teach in all the videos from the 50s about how the economy works. It doesn't actually work like that. If you actually give it a go down to your local Bank of America or Chase or something like that and say, hey, I want to buy a McDonald's franchise.
No.
Laugh at you.
For a franchise business, they won't do that. But if you're buying an existing cash flowing business with an SBA loan, then the bank will do it because the government will underwrite it. So they get to sell their loan right away.
Oh yeah, but how many of those are? How many of those are there? That's the problem. Is where you're going to find somebody selling a business that's making a profit in this?
From boomers, really. Most of the people who own businesses want to retire now, and there are people who have had solid, steady businesses for a long time. I'm not talking about the kind of startup stuff of trying to create a unicorn. I'm talking about regular cash flowing businesses, things that have functioned.
Yes, no, that's true. No, but yes, you will get co-funding. Yes, but this is a good idea. Okay, but the best money of all is 3 F's money, what they call, or 4 F's money. That's friends, family, fools, and physicians. That's the joke. But for startups and entrepreneurs and that, the 4 F's money is the good money. That's the only good money you'll ever get. And maybe SBA loans and stuff like that, but they're small, they're tiny. What they assume is that you're an affirmative action group, and they're doing it's a diversity kind of initiative, and so if to be a bit pejorative, if you're a black lesbian woman who wants to start a manicuring business, you'll get an SBA loan of about 10 grand. So
I'm not.
If you want to go and start Tesla, you're not going to do it.
Let's be clear. I don't advocate getting a loan to start a business because of the startup phase of a business. 9 out of 10 businesses that are started die in the first 5 years, and 99 out of 100 die in the first 10. And if you are in this rat race, like you're going to be a statistic if you try to do that. I've done that myself, and Hugh's done that himself, and we are statistics. Don't do it. But there are businesses that have survived the startup phase, and those are the ones that, for the price of a house, you can get leverage and buy a business that already is cash flowing, that has already survived the startup phase, where the systems are in place. And if we can bring value to those businesses to make them grow, then it does make sense for a bank to invest. And this is the big thing about what people don't understand about debt. So there's these Dave Ramsey and people like that are saying, like, get out of debt, have no debt, like pay off all your credit cards, like have nothing. But the people who are really the owners of us, they know all about debt. So they get deep in debt. So Elon Musk, you mentioned him earlier. Instead of paying taxes, Elon Musk pays interest on the loan. So that's 3% instead of 35%. So what he'll do is he has his stock.
But no, but he's already made it, right? So no bank, like the best offer I ever got in my life was Wells Fargo gave me 6%. So 6% will crush you. Now it's a little bit okay. So now think of the environment where we're going into. Okay, so it's an inflationary environment. They're going to raise interest rates. Well, as I said, they're stuck. If they raise interest rates, the economy gets crippled. Small businessmen and nobody will be able to borrow. So, run small successful companies, they're going to die like flies, because the cost of leverage will go up. You see, they can't raise prices as fast as inflation. There's a lag. Mm-hmm. And so they're completely stuck, but they're going to have to. I mean, inflation is the worst nightmare of a banker, because that's their bread and butter, is getting a regular payment. And a lot of fixed payments are, they have fixed interest rates and stuff like that. So you'll find fixed interest rates will dry up. There'll only be variable rates. And then as the quality of debt moves to variable rates, that'll allow the Fed to actually start raising rates without crippling the economy. It basically shifts the burden onto the consumer. But those businesses are not going to do well in that environment. You go and have a look at the Weimar Republic or something, and imagine that you have not a bakery or stuff. That kind of stuff doesn't exist. But imagine you have, say, a service company, like say an accounting company or something like that. It's a very mixed bag which guys make it through. If you part of the financial industry, one of the things that does make it is security. If you start selling guns, or you start doing alarm systems for houses or something like that, you'll do well. But you can't do a pizza parlor, right? Because people, you might do well as people go down market and they stop, middle class stops dining in fine restaurants and starts in fast food. Then you might have a McDonald's franchise and you'll do do well at first, but overall, you must expect that as the system goes down, people are going for scraps. So if you make any money at all, you'll be crowded out very quickly because there's no opportunity to make money. It's like Elon Musk is finding out now, is that you try to get ahead of the curve and get into the latest thing. It's a big gold rush mentality, and so suddenly Elon Musk is crowded out of EVs because he's not paying enough to the government and stuff. All that, you see, Elon Musk just got dissed by Biden. He's having a little tiff with Biden. What Biden's actually doing is he's signaling to Elon that you're not paying enough in terms of campaign finance. In other words, you're not bribing the politicians enough. So it's a shakedown. So Biden, had this conference with EVs, and he invites everybody who's been paying their dues to the politicians gets invited. Elon Musk and Silicon Valley and these guys don't understand Washington enough. They shook down Zuck. That thing about Zuck and Facebook, all it is they haul him to Washington, and those Senate inquiries and stuff, all they're doing is saying, you, Sonny, are not paying your dues in campaign finance. And that's all it is. He just goes back from Washington and says, like, okay, how much do you want? And then starts paying it. But you see, as soon as, so in other words, what I'm saying is, it's if you find any niche, you will be in the position of somebody that just like hauls out a gold nugget out of a stream somewhere in this gold rush territory. You'll be absolutely swamped with gold rush people. So the few people that can make money, they're selling picks and shovels to people in the gold rush. So if you do financial advice to somebody, you could make out really well in this kind of environment. But a lot of alternative, being a televangelist, all these cults and stuff like that they're going to go wild. A church is going to make more money than a company that makes widgets and stuff like that. So it's a very dog eat dog world. And so my suggestion is you really want to be out of it. You've got to do everything you can. So in other words, think of it like the 49ers and the San Francisco Gold Rush. It's like, what would you do there? Well, for one thing, you're a fucking idiot if you go out into the gold fields and start paying for gold, because all of those guys are going to starve to death. The really smart guys was Bank of America started with the 49ers. It was an Italian guy who said, like, hey, all these morons think they're going to find gold. I know what I'll do is I'll give them a thing, and then basically I'll get all the gold. And it was right. That's where Bank of America comes from. But unless you,
I've got to say, sorry, I've got to interrupt you there. That's a really good point, because there is actually a cryptocurrency that exists now that is doing exactly that, and it's absolutely genius. And it's called Hex, and it's making money out of all the short-term traders because it's rewarding long-term investors by doing exactly that, because they're getting absolutely screwed by fees and short-termism, and that's and basically everybody who is long-term is making money off the back of it. It's quite a new thing, but it's like in the DeFi space. I don't know if you've heard of that, which is based off of the Ethereum blockchain, but it's kind of similar to what you're talking about there with the 49, with the people that profited off of the 49ers.
Yeah, so I would put that in the category of security. So if you can sell anybody security in smoothing volatility and stuff like that, so anything. We're talking about very violent, volatile situation, a lot of casualties and roadkill. So in that environment, what people really want is security. So if you're a scam artist, which is what Elon Musk and these guys are, and this kind of thing is a scam, because they won't be able to deliver that on the promise of stability. But people, stability, security, anything that take, pain relief. So any of those are good, but you have to be pretty humble, and you have to travel light and not get too deeply into any one of them. Yeah, grifters will make out well, but if they keep
Yeah, I
on
mean,
changing
it's
their grift. But if you think into, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's interesting you say it is a security, actually, because I don't know how he's done it. The maths of the whole thing, it's been triple audited. It's had 3 economics audits, and it's had 2 coding audits, which is incredibly unusual in cryptocurrency. Most, if not all, I completely agree, are just scams and just huge, it's like the Wild West in the cryptocurrency space at the moment. But I don't know how he's done it, but he has managed to convince the US authorities that it isn't a securities. It passed the Howey test. And I don't know how he's done it. He's a fucking clever guy, but yeah. But if you look at it, he's produced some quite good
I think
content
I
which
know
explains it. But yeah,
I can guess. I can guess straight out what's coming. So a good scam is the Black-Scholes formula. So if you go and look at, he must be doing something like a version of long-term capital management. So
okay.
long-term capital management is very good thing to go and look at, because long-term capital management is pretty much what's going to happen to all these schemes.
That was the hedge
Because
fund, wasn't it,
quickly,
that took out the back in, was it the early 2000s, wasn't it, that nearly caused the financial crisis, I think, long-term capital management. It was a hedge fund.
98, it did cause the financial crisis. Yeah, it did. It actually, it stopped the world economy for about 15 minutes. And JP Morgan stepped in and saved the world, which is what they've done since the original JP Morgan. But it was all these Nobel Prize laureates had this idea for smoothing risk, and they said basically, eventually, the spread on a bond narrows as it heads towards maturity. So they said, you can see that it's on the wrong side of the risk equation, because you know that at maturity it loses all its risk, and then it just gets redeemed. So the Black-Scholes formula encouraged people to think that there was security in where there wasn't. What the way to see it is what they called it afterwards, which is vacuuming up nickels in front of a steamroller. So you know that the steamroller is coming, and you go, oh look, there's a trading opportunity, because there's it's a nickel off, and so you can smooth volatility on that. But you see, it's you're selling insurance. And as we've talked about before, is no insurance company should exist, because it's irrational. Because there'll always be some risk that you can't hedge against, even at some point in time. So the flippening's coming, everybody would get wiped out. But even if you just say the sun's going to expand and swallow Earth, it's like there's nothing that's a reasonable insurance hedge. So insurance is fundamentally a short-term scam. And what these things are is, when I say security, I mean they literally insurance. So yeah, you've got to be careful here, because you can't get into these schemes. Well, hang on a minute, maybe I should qualify myself. There's in this collapse, there are extraordinary amounts of money going around. When you think of it in terms of Zimbabwe dollars, there are huge amounts of confetti money. Transferring as it turns more and more into confetti. Whether you can get part of that and stuff is, again, catching a falling knife. Right? So I wouldn't. Okay, I'd say divert the strategy. Do all of these little things, but I'd say the biggest thing I'd say very strongly is don't get too heavily vested in anything.
Yeah,
any scheme or anything that takes
I'm completely with you. I mean, I had a little personal story. I was, I had you know, like a sort of flutter, shall we say, in like the first big run up back in 2017. It was when all these they call them alt is short for alternative coins, you know, in the blockchain space and all this nonsense. And you know, I dabbled a bit. I was never heavily into it because luckily I found some content and listened to some people that and you could there was quite wise content to say, you know, this is just all, you know, and a lot of this money, I mean, it's happening again now. I can see it with people around me at work. They're all there on like their Coinbase app, and it's like, hang on a minute. I thought if you actually got into it in the early days, but the thing is, they're like the second wave, and they don't understand the whole raison d'etre of all of these things. Well, the dream in the clouds was, you know, this is like anti-government. It's, you know, decentralized, and yet what has happened? All of it has gone centralized. All of the exchanges are centralized. Now you've got a Bitcoin ETF, and it's like all the big money is coming. If you had like earlier this year, you know, and you see like people like Michael Saylor and you know, all the top hedge funds and all these, that, you know, big money like that coming in, and Elon Musk, even that idiot, he came in and he bought it and then he sold it. So he bought it at the top. How many more billionaires have you got after that to buy it? But people don't really see that. They just think it's going to go to the moon. It's like, there's only so many billionaires that actually, like, you know, dabble in it. I mean, they can't, you know. So anyway, I'm just saying that, yeah, I completely agree. And there's just so many people that get sucked into it and they don't really understand. And they're like, they're just, it's the Wild West.
So basically,
shiny objects. And
all of them are scams. All of them are scams. 70% or something extraordinary are wash trades. They spoof trades just to keep the market up. That's what they're doing. Everybody's doing. That's what they're doing with the gold and silver price. Is they wash trades.
The ETFs in the gold market. Yeah, that's what they do all the time, isn't it? They dump them every time the gold price makes a run up. They go, and then in the middle of the night they go and dump loads of paper gold contracts on the market, don't they, to bring the price back down.
They don't have. It's fraud, right? It's fraud. They just stay one step ahead of the accounts. So if you want a good fraud, I'll tell you a very quick and easy way to make money is that any small guy can do is you go and tell people, you do training courses, you write a whole lot of training material, and you get a swanky, you know, office or something in like Tower Bridge or something like that, and you just tell people that you will tell them how to make money in the metaverse, and all the course is you give other people training on how to make money in the metaverse.
Yeah, like the yoga thing, so and
people will spend grants and stuff.
Yeah, that was what was happening in 2017. It was like, if you can pay, you know, some few like clever scientists, you know, coders or whatnot, you know, several, I don't know, you know, 100,000 or whatever, they'll write you a nice white paper, and then we get some other guy to make us a really fancy website. And then, you know, this is our project, and this is our, and it was just crazy the amount of people that got absolutely.
I know this works because everybody's forgotten now. But I'm an old enough dinosaur to remember the start of the internet. And at the start of the internet, everybody realized, you know, there was a scramble to get into the internet, and nobody really understood what the internet was. So they all just kind of just knew, oh, it's taking off. This is the next wave. And so the guys that made the most money were guys that gave courses on how to make money on the internet, and people would pay $3,000, $10,000 for these courses, especially if they're in nice locations. And all the course is a pyramid scheme. You just give people all the materials so they start up their own business, telling people how to, and that's it. You don't tell people how to. You get what the scam is. You don't tell people how to make money on the internet. You just sell a franchise of businesses telling or purporting to tell you how to make money on the internet. And as long as, you know, until everybody realizes it's just a pyramid scheme, you can make a bunch of money, especially if you arrange it like Amway or something like that.
Yeah, I want to go back to the debt. So you mentioned Hugh, you mentioned that 6% will eat you alive and this kind of thing, and that's true. If you get fixed rate debt, one that's and you have other people paying it for you. So if you are being an asshole, like landlord or business owner, basically everything that anarchists don't like, then then you can use fixed rate debt, intelligently to multiply your
Oh yeah,
return on cash return.
yeah, but it depends who you are. You see, this is how the hedge funds got rich. If you want to see where the hedge funds came from, there are books like Barbarians at the Gates and stuff like that, and they were like KKK and all of these guys. What they
KKR.
did was what they still do. Oh yeah, KKR. That's right. Not KKK. KKK is something different, but close enough. KKR. Yeah. Kravitz and the like ripoff. I can't remember what they are. But anyway, they came from Ivan Bodsky and these guys, and what it's all a scam, but it's what everybody's doing. This is how everybody's getting rich. Bezos and all the rest of them, everybody, even to GE, anybody, but because they got in earlier, State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock are the kings of this game. But what they do is what they just did to Toys R Us is they do a leverage buyout. That means that they go to a bank, and the bank's in on this game, so they always get their money because they know what the game is. So they do a hostile takeover. They buy the company from all the shareholders, in effect take it private sometimes, but it still works if you keep it public. But you go to a public company, you bribe all the stockholders, and you say, you offer them extraordinary money. It's not money, it's the bank's money. And you say, well, why do the shareholders take it? It's because you offer something like double what the stock price is. So they're all greedy bastards. They all take the money. So now you've got this company with like a shitty amount of debt. And you say, well, how do you repay all that debt? You don't have that debt. You pass that debt on to the company like Toys R Us. So effectively, Toys R Us are crippled. So how does the hedge fund make money? Out of fees, the same way the bank does. You see, I remember my dad telling me this long ago. He said, if you want to make extraordinary amounts of money, the way to do it is you put together a large deal. So in other words, you figure out some amazing deal of saying like a property deal or some kind of merger or some kind of international thing. But you get like 3 entities, put them together. If you're the guy that does, you can take like a third of the result. It's like ridiculous. If you got 3 of the biggest companies in the world, and made the deal where they all merge, effectively you as an individual can walk away with something like that. You could instantly become the richest guy in the world just by that. And so that's in effect what they were doing. They take all these fees and all the excess, and then they pile the target company. It's called a raid. So they're doing corporate raiding. They just pile it with debt. Toys R Us goes down the tubes, and then all the press and stuff, they all tuss and say, oh, well, it's because Amazon and Toys R Us are falling behind because, everybody's buying online, and they'll have a million reasons other than what actually happened. But the financial press never exposes that game, and the guys just go on to the next thing. So then you take all that money that you made, and then you do a bigger raid until now they're running out of things to raid. They're raiding whole countries. Greece was in effect a debt raid. So the game has gone on. So they're running out of mammoths to bring down. But they get money very, very cheap, very cheap. Some of these guys like Mitt Romney, I think he gets 0% loans. If you get a 0% loan, it's like, fuck it, man. What can't you do? What could stop you becoming the richest person? You give me a 0% loan of $1 billion, I'll overtake Musk in a year or two. Easy. and I'll have it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's so those kind of private equity deals are the leveraged buyouts. They're usually at the large figure level, so they are running out of mammoths, but there are plenty of you know rabbits and antelopes left. So I think that's where I'm talking about the for the people in this group at some point. Maybe we could look into doing a smaller buyout of, say, a private security company that does what anarchists want. If instead of the police, have a private security company or something like that, which is making money. And I think that's a the other thing is just the real estate. If there's cash flowing real estate, you can borrow against it and accelerate your money far faster than you would get in a stock market return. So the the idea is to get in actual cash flowing assets. So if you have a home and you're living in it, that's not an asset. That's a liability to you because it's taking money out of your pocket. Hugh, your boat is a liability, right? It's not an asset. Same with anybody who owns their home. But I think that if you're able to make the things you buy pay you every month, then those are assets that you can accumulate over time, and that will compound much faster. So it's maybe not the best advantage for taxes, but that's where you're talking about investing rather than speculating.
This is what Robert Kiyosaki said, isn't it? That's the rich dad, poor dad guy, all of that business. Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that they don't the rich people don't pay taxes because they just use loans to have to live off of. So they'd rather pay the interest rate on the loan, even if it's 6%, and have it be backed by the assets they have, than to pay the actual taxes on the money, because loans are tax free.
No, they don't pay interest. So they could pay negative interest if Elon Musk goes and takes a loan. He could very well pay something like -2%. They would pay him to take the loans, and you might think that's bizarre, but the reason is they go to the derivatives market and they pass on the debt, so they can't get enough debtors, and so they will. I mean, if you wonder how these guys get rich, is like, I mean, they can't not. It's kind of like Brewster's Millions for them, because they have to fend off people that want to pay them to take a loan. In fact, I don't have a lot of faith in anything that takes years to build up or something. I think we've got like a very short time horizon. But I'll tell you one thing that would work is consolidating debt. If you go down to guys with student loans and guys with underwater, that's going to be a big deal. So if you buy up all the debt and do that game, that would work. You can definitely pass on the debt, hypothecate it. Okay, I'll tell you something which now could get me sent to prison on this call. Okay, so how do I describe it? Okay, imagine. Okay, here's a plot for a book I'm writing. Okay, so in this book, there are a bunch of anarchists, right? What they do is they set up a financial corporation, maybe with the backing of some rich boomer who wants to take down the system. Now, in my book, completely fictional, you understand, these anarchists then go and buy up all the student debt, right? So that they buy up all the student debt in this company, and then they collapse. Do you get it?
Yeah.
See, if it wasn't fiction, I would be sent to jail for fraud by telling you this, because that would be fraudulent. But if it just happened naturally and they didn't intend it, then basically 1.9 trillion in debt. If you went to and said to every single guy that you can find with a student loan, say, what's your student loan? Oh, I've got £100,000. You say, okay, how much do you have? Because I will take on that entire loan for whatever money you have. And they'd say, well, I've got a car. I say, well, sell that car and I'll take on the debt. And you've got a job, you could probably go and get another car, better one, for finance. In fact, we'll help you with that. And then you say, okay, you sign over the debt. So now Anarchy Inc. has got a debt of 100,000. It's got a small cash income from $1,000 for this guy, and the guy goes off and gets a loan for a car, and then Anarchy Inc. crumbles. That's what they're doing all over in the stock market. That's how they're getting rid of their debts. That's how the banks are getting rid of their debts. But you see,
basically,
nobody on the left and stuff. These guys are knives.
Just call the company Greece, and you got the same situation.
In effect, that's what they were doing with Greece, right? So, well, Greece, well, if they'd listened to Varoufakis, they would have done that. That's what a country does when you can't plan a default. That's illegal for obvious reasons. But you see, there's so much debt that's immoral, and you see the debt. I tried to explain this to. I won't go into that, but anyway, you can't get this wrong. You see, it's very dangerous to have a little bit of knowledge, right? So I think that like Gail and stuff like that, she ran into this. We tried to convince them about a debt strike. They didn't understand it, and now she's facing a charge of fraud. It's a very serious charge, way worse than gluing your tits to the road, because it's far more dangerous. See what happened with debt is the whole system is, because we're all debt slaves. They don't have live slave markets anymore. They have they sell your chains in an open market, and without the debt slave even knowing about it. So it's not like Steven Pinker says, like, oh, we've got liberation and stuff. No, they perfected slavery. There's still slave auctions. It's just the slaves don't even know. They don't even appear. That's all. It's just they just got cleverer at running the slave market. So what happens is that.
Sorry, I was just going to say,
to make.
I'd say, is that to do with the birth certificate thing? Because that's what a lot of people have been delving into. I've heard of this before, and it's like, yeah, there's something going on there in deep government, like to do with, as you say, like almost slave auctions.
Oh well, no, I mean, as soon as you're given a social security number or a tax number, you're essentially
social security number is your cell number. Social security number is your cell number.
Okay. It's your tattoo on the arm. So what but anyway, well, the important thing to know about this, and especially for activists on the left and who aspire to actually change, is do financial change. So but anyway, what happened in the slave market is they needed liquidity of a slave. So it's like nobody would buy somebody else's debt, because it's like, fuck, it's like you're only going to sell the debt if it's a hot potato. So knowing this, governments, responding to their owners, which are the financiers, passed all over the world, by the way, starting in Britain. They passed sweeping and deep legislation. This is rooted in the legal system all over the capitalist world. In fact, even communist world, is that they tried to make the debt market very liquid, something that's naturally illiquid because no one can trust debt. And to do that, they said that if you pass on a debt, the person that receives that debt has far, far more rights than the original debtor. So I can sign a loan agreement with some SAP, and it can be relatively mild. Without the knowledge of that SAP, and this is what everybody that gives you debt does, by the way, because of this, is if I go then to some third party that you've never fucking heard of, and I sell the debt onto him, he suddenly gets extraordinary rights. He can have your kids to the 5th generation and, you know, search and seizure. Basically, you have the rights of a drug dealer going through customs for the guy that I sell it to. So, and you don't even have to know or agree. And all debt can be passed on.
Yeah. This is what happened in.
The banks won't let you pass the debt on, right? The banks won't let you sell your debt on, but they immediately sell it on as fast as they can.
This is what's happened in
the
the
reason
UK
is
with all the mortgages. This is the we've got. There's a few people in the UK who are actually taking the banks through the ringer now, particularly Santander, which is a Spanish bank, and because he managed to, over years and years, this chap, he basically just kept challenging them because he knew that what was happening when you actually delve into the terms and conditions of the mortgage, it's all just being sold on. Like his, you know, like they're just making absolute killing, you know, by creating these, you know, derivatives. I think that's what you're talking about. And he was basically he was sent a screen dump, a shot that showed that they in the mortgage contract they became the attorney. So people are unwittingly signing away their life, essentially, you know, when they're not, they don't have power of attorney. That's essentially the bank ends up with power of attorney. And this is incredibly powerful because then, so when people are signing these contracts, like anything, they're not reading it and they're not understanding, but it allows the banks to just, get away with murder. I'm not very good at explaining it, but I'm sure you're familiar with that kind of, well, I think that correlates to what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's especially something like a non-recourse debt or something that has repo rights and stuff like that. But you see, what people don't understand is when they get into debt is they go to a nice little lender and agree their terms of slavery. I'm not realizing that the slave owner that they're selling themselves to has no intention of hanging on to them as slaves for more than a nanosecond. That they're going to dump them as well. You see, the reason why people don't know this is they're careful to name themselves as administrator. So if you go to Halifax or NatWest or whatever, they will Lloyd's Bank. They will be careful to put something in as that they become the administrator of the loans after they sold it on. So that why they do that is that they can maintain the fiction to you that, you know, I mean, the game would fall apart if everybody knew what they did behind the scenes. So they pretend that they still, you know, they send you letters with the Lloyd's Bank header on it and stuff like that, but the letterhead is just there to maintain the fiction that so that the public thinks that they're still indebted to Lloyd's Bank. But if ever you have a legal case or anything, you'll quickly find out that Lloyd's Bank steps out of the picture, and you're dealing with this, you know, rat's nest of fucking thieves, and so you'll be crushed. But you see, it goes both ways. Right?
It's all to do with that people don't know how to stand, because if you stand as a physical human being, I mean, to put it in its layman's terms, from what I understand, there's commercial law, which is the law of the sea. So the law of the sea is that's you stand in, you stand in a dock, right? That's where a ship's docked, and it's all, everything there is like you're dead. You're on the sea, you're dead in the debtor's prison, as you say. It's all like from commercial. It's kind of fascinating because it's all, it's the law of the sea, isn't it? But it's all comes from that. So yeah, if you know how to stand in those situations, then you can play it. But if you don't, then you automatically admit that, you are dead and you are that person that you signed on that bit of paper. And, it all goes back to this like Justinian, doesn't it? You know, with all our surnames. Like we didn't used to have surnames, and that was something that was given to everybody, like, that denotes who you are as a slave, doesn't it? It's kind of fascinating and quite scary once you start looking through all that stuff. But
the Venetians started this, so it's the reason why what they call banks is that's a bench. It's the Italian banco for bench, and the reason is because the Venetian moneylenders basically would lend money over a bench, you know, outside, you know, kind of a bar table. But that's why Shakespeare wrote The Merchant of Venice. Fortunately, instead of telling, you know, people what the game is, and they tell people in school that, like, you can tell from The Merchant of Venice that Shakespeare's an anti-Semite, and, you know, we could dismiss him and stuff, and say, like, okay, forget about the anti-Semitism. Go and look what he's telling you about the fucking Merchant of Venice is where this game was invented, was in Venice. But it got into a high gear when the DOC, right, the Dutch East India Company, that's where the relationship to shipping came in, because it was done for arbitrage to the West Indies, and everything, insurance and stuff, it all came from these syndicates getting together to pool their money. And in fact, what I'm saying is what we should do is the Extinctionati, is that the rich guys who pooled their money to invest in a ship, and then insurance came about because they had to share the risk of that the ship might be lost, because so many were lost. But you know, anybody that signs on to one of those ships, they're screwed, because you know, right up until today, with Filipinos on P&O lines or any one of these other Carnival cruises or anything, it's the same old game. Is they pay them nothing, and they make them accumulate debt while they're on board. So the old trick that they did to press gang sailors and stuff is they would give them all the equipment and clothes and food, and they would all be signing for it as they went in the ledger, not realizing that it's been taken out of their pay. So they would often get to the destination thinking, okay, you owe us more than you're going to earn in the next year. And they'd go, how come? And I said, well, look, you signed for all this shit that you had. Bread, meat, clothes, boots. You know how much that shit costs? Well, it costs a hell of a lot on this ship. In fact, if you had bought them in port, it would have cost you 1/10 of the cost. But they had centuries of that nobody came back and said, don't get on the ship. It's a fucking scam. But it still goes on today, even on ships. But all of these games, they all got elaborated. That's what these stupid shits like Pinker never get, is they cannot see that what is, none of the violence went away. It just went underground. It got more subtle, and it's worse. If you just mug somebody in the street, it's far less than the mugging that Lloyd's Bank will give you over your fucking lifetime with a mortgage. They don't put mortgage, it has the word mort in it for fucking good reason, right? But you see, the thing is, nobody ever, again, probably not many people are going to like this video because it's boring. They always done the same thing. They bored everybody to death. It's basically, yes, they talk about the banality of evil and guys like Eichmann. No, it's the banality of banking. They made banking and finance so banal and so much like root canal therapy that basically nobody can look at it without falling asleep. And that's their protection. It's basically, it's almost like a vampire bat. You know, I know vampire bats don't actually anesthetize the things. That's a myth. But in effect, there's, I think, maybe 1 or 2 mice. But anyway, what a vampire bat does is mythically, it's supposed to anesthetize the host with saliva and stuff like that has that's anesthetic. And that's what the guys are doing. They you know, the whole subject. So even if you talk about, like, to Extinction Rebellion, about a debt rebellion and consolidating debt and defaulting, which I want to do because that would be illegal, but you know, it's too boring a subject. It's far more sexy to cop and, you know, do all, you know, all this fucking stupid stuff. But you see, the police crimes bill Yeah. It's like, give me a fucking call. But the problem is, you can't pick and choose because you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and this is complicated. So if anybody wants to give me a call to say, how can you do activism like this? And it's like, well, it's difficult. Because people haven't got a fucking clue. You have the problem with the fact is they don't believe it. They don't, it's like, oh, it's a joke. It's a joke on Stephen Colbert. Oh, tinfoil hat, they're farming us. Ha ha ha, what a dipshit. It's like, no, they're fucking farming us. It's like the way they get away with it is because you think, oh, there's no conspiracies. I'm going to make a success and I'm going to be a fucking Nobel Prize laureate and stuff. And you're a fucking idiot. You really are being fucking duped. So activists can't do this because somewhere along the line you have to tell people this thing that you're a sheep and stuff like that, but you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist. So it's like literally just like trying to herd cats. So so in essence, once you understand that slavery is the modern version of slavery, in fact, the old version of slavery was debt. All the way to get to America and wind up on a plantation was to run up debts in Africa. It's basically nobody went running into the wilds of Africa to try and round up poor black people and put them on slave ships and send them to the Americas. They went to the coast and bought them. Why? From other bastards, Africans who were selling their mates. No white person took a step into Africa to get a slave. The Arabs did. But they generally get Arabs. Why did everybody allow the Arabs to run around in burqas, taking all their family into custody? Because of debt. Everybody agreed with it. Everybody, you see the culture, and everybody said, is like, well, you ran up the debt, so, look at the fine print.
Yeah.
It said, if you can't pay your debts, you get taken bodily into slavery, so get on the ship. And like, nobody says that. They say it's colonialism and white people, stolen from Africa into bullshit. Africans sent you there because they bought into the debt system and sold you. Stupid fucks. Racism's got nothing to do with it.
Sophie, you're muted.
This is still happening because I have worked with people who have arrived from Africa and their families out there are indented with the debt that these people had to get across to pay a trafficker to get them to Europe or wherever. And over there, their family are working for nothing to pay for the slave that's gone to Europe and their slaves in their own country because of that. It's just, it hasn't changed. It's still going on.
Yeah, all the guys in the Middle East, right? All the workers that are putting up, when you see these fantastic things like this, Bin Laden, not Bin Laden, the Bansor and Bandan and these guys, that city that the guys are building there in Saudi and stuff, you read in the highest this and the biggest that and desalination and glass and EVs and flying cars and stuff, and it's like they never mention that all those little ants building that they're all slave labor. They've all come from like everywhere from Mali to Malaysia, and the reason why they're working on that build is the guys are holding their fucking passports. They would go home if they could, and actually they wouldn't go home if they could because the guys at their home would probably beat the shit out of them because they were sent there to make money, often by their fathers and stuff. So it's like they can't go home because they'd go home in disgrace and get an ass whipping if they're lucky. So it's like slavery is far darker than you realize, but a large part of slavery is what Kanye West said. Kanye West said the most important things that African Americans ever heard, and they need to sew this on their fucking pillows. Kanye West said, "Truth and get over it. You get over it. Listen." Kanye West said the guys were slaves because they submitted to slavery. The slaves' fault. He is right. He's absolutely fucking right. But more than that, it's not the slave, the family. They bought into that system. They bought into the idea that you allow debts. If you can't pay your debts, somebody can seize you bodily. All of the stuff that we still do today. If you can't pay your debts now, you call a deadbeat dad, and you call a this pejorative and a that pejorative, and you everybody in the slave labor, they contribute to the slavery because they put anybody that defaults on debt and stuff is a pariah. So it's like that's what happened in Africa. That's what Kanye West is talking about. Is this everybody cheered this enslavement of their own brothers because they had this primate brain debt instinct. They used our primate brain to our alien cortex used the shores of our primate brain, and our primate brain, particularly its instinct for debt and debt obligation. So in Germany, debt is called guilt or something like that, but it means guilt. And one of the reasons why the Germans are very averse to debt is because the word is guilt, and it has the same connotations. One of the reasons why the Industrial Revolution took off in Britain is the debt wasn't such a pejorative, unfortunately. But anyway, don't forget that slaves contribute to their slavery, largely by buying into the debt system. So anyway, if you want to get out of it, slaves can buy their own debt. If they all, pool together, buy their own debt and default, well, that's illegal. But what the fuck they're gonna do, man? So anyway, well, that's probably a good place to stop unless anybody's got anything more to say. But I must say that we can't let this topic go, because this is the very first hurdle you have to negotiate in a extinction. Is you have to, in this collapse where all these morons are running around, the financial system, I mean, Evergrande is just reneged on its debt, right? Nobody knows what China's going to do. Nobody knows if China has the money to mop this up. But that's the Lehman Brothers moment. It's just how much political will and capital does China have, or the CCP have, to bail them out. Going to bail, and property crumbles in China. You're going to see it on the shelves in Saints. So here's the other thing is this is all opaque. Nobody knows what goes on, has the faintest clue what goes on it's like a shadow with derivatives market and stuff. Nobody really knows who's indebted to who. All you know, it's a gang of thieves, and everybody's in it up to their elbows. It's going to collapse because it's an unviable slave market where, you see, what they've done is they've sold the chains that you have around your neck on many times. So in other words, they count the chains. I've said this in one of my videos. They count the chains and not the slaves. So they're running out of necks, right, to put the chains on. But the false accounting is done because they don't account for the necks. They don't account for how many people there are and how they can never pay it back. So if you look at Tesla, it would take the PE ratios for Tesla would take 1,000 years. I heard it would take Tesla 1,000 years to buy back what its market cap is. So it's like the only way it works is if they're not counting Tesla, they're counting the chains, the derivatives that are sold on. And so it's like, but the chains don't pay any money. It's the slave with a neck that works and returns money. So you can't count the chains and say, oh, I've got 1,000 slaves. Why? Look, I've got 1,000 chains. You say, what's at the end of the chain? Oh, there's only this one slave. Like all this chains in the world around this one slave's neck, and everybody's saying, I'm rich, I've got 1,000 slaves. No, you've got 1,000 chains on one slave's neck. And that's the problem. That's why this system's going to fail soon.
The necks have all disappeared due to the virus. Haha, just a joke. But I was going to appreciate Ryan for bringing up all illusions we have and the propaganda that we get. Because as you say, the finance thing is just a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's unfortunate that it's very labyrinthine, and there are like all kinds of games, like all kinds of planners you can go to so that you can plan like backdoor from your traditional Roth into your Roth IRA so that you can not be penalized by the required minimum distribution. So it's all just a big game, and people are not sophisticated enough to know all the rules. And then, like you said, people's eyes glaze over when we talk about finances, rules, regulations. And there's a lot of propaganda about distracting us. And so, anyway, I wanted to appreciate what Ryan said. But at the same time, I wanted to maybe, like you said, for future meetings, to go into the addressing, because what Ryan, I think, was kind of building is like a proposal of some kind of anarchist, I don't know, like business venture or something that cash flows. But maybe that's one approach. But as you said, it might be too late if it takes a long time to get benefits. It's hard to evaluate businesses that cash flow. But maybe there are other options to prepare, like for this financial collapse, like self-employment. For instance, if you go to plumber school and take 2 years, and you're like you said, something like that, that's probably more achievable for regular folk who are not high finance dealers.
Yeah,
Or else, like what you suggested earlier, we start courses for people to tell how you make money during the collapse.
We'll have online demos of how to survive the flippening.
Well, one thing I would highly recommend is going and having a look at the other crises. So if you have a look at, say, Argentina and stuff like that, is look at what those guys did. One of the things they did was have buyers clubs, or not buyers clubs, they're trading clubs, but in essence, they would have their own economy and with their own currency, just kind of a fake currency or something. But they would buy warehouses, and then people would exchange and trade with this
local currency,
basically
like
phony
a co-op,
money.
like a
Local
co-op
currency.
with local currency.
Yeah, but everybody paid to just have a stall inside the warehouse, very little, and then they essentially just traded these tokens, and then it was mainly things that craft things and veggie stuff that people could.
Yeah, they have that in Bristol. You have the Bristol pound. I think, I don't know if it's still there, but yeah, that's like quite established. I think that's been going for years. Yeah, like small market, but yeah.
I mean, that's what I intended with Geodo, is to do something like the Bristol pound that you could use on a cell phone. But yeah, I mean, I would still like to revive all of that if we could get enough people involved. But I still hang on to the dream that we can do something as a collective. We can find a way, the simpler the better, to actually support all of us together as a mutualist community around the world. I would love to do that, but yep. Pooling stuff. I think that's the way to get through all of this. Is you can't see, everybody wants to find a winning strategy. The fact you're trying to find a winning strategy is a loser's gambit. So you have to accept that no one knows. So you do what the DOC did, all those syndicates, is you pool your resources, and then you say, well, somebody's going to pull through. So if you have a big enough group of people that are smart enough, somebody goes through and pays for all the rest. But again, it's a 9 out of 10 thing. And so what Ryan was saying is, the venture capitalists, if you ask any venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, they'll tell you that they do 10 investments, they expect 8 to fail. They expect 1 to be the bastard and not not break through and neither die, which is the worst of all for them. They hate that because it's a time suck. And then the thing that pays for all of the 10 is one success. And so those guys are experts in, you know, horse trading or identifying successful slaves or entrepreneurs, and they can't tell. Out of 10, they only expect to get one right, and they can't tell in advance. They do fantastic due diligence, and the experts cannot get it more than 1 in 10 right. So you take that as an individual, and you have to say, like, you've got 9 chances out of 10 that you're going to fuck up. So, but the 10th is always knock it out the park thing. So that's what I'm saying for the Extinctionati is, if you have 10% of members of the Extinctionati make out like bandits, they can easily cover the rest. But what you can't say is, like, what's the winning strategy? Everybody wants to know what the winning strategy is. I say, first, get rid of that thought. That thought that there's a winning strategy is the fundamental road killer.
Yeah, I do have. I'll leave you guys with an idea, which is geo arbitrage. So rather than maxing out your HSA and using one of these government programs, I think that if you spend over 330 days outside of the US, if you're a US taxpayer, then over $110,000 of your money can be tax exempt if it's earned income. So that every year the US pays me 40 grand essentially to get the fuck out. So I think there's
Well, it pays you back, right?
Pays me back. I don't have
pays you back. You tax first.
Yeah.
You tax
I
first.
get taxed first, and then they pay me back. So they're getting the zero interest loan. But yeah.
Well, there's okay. So here's an interesting idea: is if you look at the possibilities for remote working, they're becoming more and more possible. So especially something like the Extinctionati that's kind of distributed, and especially like my pirate fleet, is you can work from anywhere now, and people don't know it yet. So it's quite, you know, especially with everybody working from home and lockdowns and stuff like that, is from 2020 it was a golden opportunity to leave. So, you know, you like Ryan was saying, is like, you know, Ryan was spending like 40K. It was fined 40K for just if you'd been in the States. So if you just work from a boat in the Med and telecommute, they're paying you 40K straight away to do that.
And year on year for however many years, that adds up. So it's a yeah, and instead of an HSA, go to another country where you can pay cash for a medical procedure and it's just as good, and it hardly makes a dent compared to you know, the expenses elsewhere. So it's if you really want to optimize your taxes as a USican, that's the way. But for people who have residence-based taxation systems, just leave your country and keep traveling, and you can maybe get a tax residence somewhere that doesn't tax you so much. But yeah, if you're doing this nomadic perpetual traveler thing, and you can find a way to position yourself to be getting remote active income, that's a huge benefit for the financial health of the Extinctionati.
Do you have some resources? Sorry, I was just going to say, I remember you said before, Ryan, that you had some resources on that kind of, yeah, like emigration or like remote working or just perpetual traveling. Be cool if you could post some. I don't have your email address. I'm not sure if it was on the list.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk in Discord on anything in particular, but yeah, there's it depends on what you want. I have if it's buying a citizenship or something, then I do have resources on that, as well as other kinds of
Yeah, I think it'd just be
guidelines.
helpful. Yeah, all of what you have. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll have to have a look. I'll contact you on that.
Well, can I make a suggestion that people are going to hate? Is do you mind writing a book?
Me?
Accumulate some. Yeah, accumulate
Royalties.
some knowledge. So basically, you do the Extinctionati's Guide to Sovereignty or something like that. So you do the sovereign individual, but tips on how to do remote work, and there's a lot of resources online for people that are starting to get the idea. But I'll tell you one of them, just one before we end, and that's medical in America. You can take advantage of that scam. In Greece or other European countries, healthcare at the state facility is €100 for the year. So €100 gets you medical coverage at the state level, which is pretty good outside of a pandemic, for €100. Now, in America, that would cost you about a couple of grand a month. And if you've got a prior condition or anything, they'll service you very well in most European countries. Even as an expat or somebody that's bought into the system. So it's like, if you have station and you're being fucked over by medication or something by the states, you should seriously consider doing telecommuting and saving all that money and getting on some state system. The state, by the way, would love you to buy residency there because they want the cash and then you get the tax benefits. But yeah, I mean, this is what the rich people have armies of people telling them how to save money, which is kind of ironic because they're the ones that need to save money the least. But I think as a community effort, we could certainly tell people how to arrange finances and do creative stuff because, what's going to happen is the guys are going to be coming down the hills from the gold rush, poverty, full of poverty and destitution, and you want to be able to help them out and give them pointers. So it could be a growing project and a growing body of knowledge of how to negotiate the crash all the way to the flipping and back to monkey.
I think that's why we have to remember what you said in a previous meeting about the importance of being open between us on what we can offer to those people, and welcoming as many people as you can in your boats or houses or hideouts or whatever you have, because that is something that we can pool, because we are an international group and we've got all sorts of different locations.
In actuality, among my peers, part of the golden handcuffs is they think they have a gold-plated health insurance, and so that's why people of my generation don't want to quit work, is if they have what they presume is good health insurance until the time comes when there's some weird disease they have that even the health insurance will not cover. So I think what Ryan was proposing about, and you also, Hugh, about alternatives to getting medical care in other countries would be very beneficial. Thanks also, Sophie, for all the comments about offering each other.
Yeah, and I would add to this that I'm not working anymore. I'm a poor gardener, but I offer free advice to ex-patients because they're being fucked up by the system, and sometimes they come to see me and we have a chat about how they've been messed up and stuff like that. So I've done it a few times online too for some people. So I'm happy also to freely give health advice and whatever you want. I'm really not much in the system, but I've got my knowledge and my experience to share. So you never know,
Thank you,
Can
Sophie.
you write prescriptions?
I manage, yeah, because I know the pharmacist, because I can't afford to pay my registration to the medical council anymore because they want to ask me for an, but I don't care because they know me around here. So yeah, I can write prescriptions. Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
That's useful.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing that I know is that there are a lot of old people are, taking cruises, perpetual cruises, because I think I mentioned this before, on these cruise ships like Holland America and Carnival and P&O and stuff. They have great medical care because it's really bad publicity to have most of the customers are geriatric, and it's very bad publicity to have geriatric people dying on your cruise. So they have like gold-plated, top-notch medical facilities, better than most hospitals on these cruise ships, and it's free. And so the cruise ships are kind of like Las Vegas. It's kind of, the room is almost free because they try and shake you down in the gambling in the theater and the restaurants and stuff. So they get you as a captive with this bait and switch. So they try and get you on board with this ridiculously low package holiday on a cruise liner, and then they try to shake you down later. But if you don't go in, it'll just like Vegas, you can get a free room and you never go to the gambling and the restaurants and the shows and stuff. So then it's a net loss for them, and then you go and go on their medical. They know that a lot of people are abusing it, but they don't really care because there are enough people to pay their way, and they don't want to spoil a good thing. But I think the fact when the cruise ships closed down, they cost people a lot of the free medical care.
Fair warning for people who are trying to get the foreign earned income exclusion in the U.S. tax system. If you are on a cruise liner, that counts as like a day in the U.S. for the 330 days outside of the U.S. So you only get 30 days. So if you go on a cruise, you could miss the 40 grand.
No, but if you go on like an Italian cruise ship or something, then you're on foreign soil, right?
As long as it's on foreign soil, it has to be in a foreign government. So it's
it's easy. No, it's easy to find a cruise liner that's not American.
No, if it goes into international waters, that counts as a day in the U.S.
No, but if you are under a foreign flag and you're cruising the Caribbean, you're out of the U.S. surely.
Yeah, as long as you can document it that it's in which government's waters it's in, then you're okay.
Yeah, but it's easy to document it on a cruise.
Yeah. Just making it clear, it has to be in a foreign government.
Yeah. Basically, ships and planes are sovereign territory wherever they go. I'm a little slice of sovereign territory, and that's one of the reasons why you have to ask permission to board a boat, which no, it's basically crossing an international boundary. Anyway, yeah. Anybody got anything else? Let's round it off there. Alrighty. Let's just pause, let go. Lots of things to think about, but let's just put them aside and fall still, come to a fine point of attention. Om Paramatmane Nama Iti. All right. Have a good week. You got one more week before the solstice.
That's
about
right.
9 days before the solstice.
I won't see you next weekend. I'll be there for the following one. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Don't
much.
forget the solstice, though.
I know.
Okay.
All right, everyone.
Have a
Bye-bye.
nice weekend next weekend. All right. Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
and goodbye.